don't need to be there. And that is what is going on. Then Congress, knowing that this is about to take place, they go home. They go home. They don't say, well, let's call an emergency meeting. We've seen polls where 85 and sometimes 90% of the people don't want us to go. Let's stop this now. Let's come off break and let's deal with this because this is serious. The people don't want to go. We need to address this. But they go home instead. How can our government always talk about how important we are to them when they always have somewhere else to go? They're not going home. We're going to another country to bomb or fight or to prop up some other dictator who will later turn around and bite us in the rear end. That is the history of what we've been doing. Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein. Do I need to go on? I can give you example upon example upon example. Why am I giving you these examples? Because I want you to remember. When you remember, you will then come into an awakening. That's why I don't do stump speeches. I'm more interested in awakening the American people, especially this group, because you showed up. That means you care about what's going on. And when you remember, you will remember things like this. Here in Georgia, they passed a carrot and stick legislation on the ad valorem tax. Guess what, folks? You no longer have to pay ad valorem. You buy your car the first time and all you pay is $20 every year when it's time to renew your tag. Aren't we doing you such a great favor? Here's what they didn't tell you. This was the stick part. We inserted ourselves even further into your lives. When you go to sell that private motor vehicle to somebody else, the state will determine 6.5% of this fair market value, even if you sold it for $100, and you're going to pay that 6.5% tax. They didn't tell me about that up front, because had I known, had it been on the ballot, I would have voted against it. Who warned us? Nobody. Nobody. They want to get further into our pockets with taxing us on the internet. Again, the government inserting itself into the private lives of American citizens with more taxes. I can go on and on and on with examples like this. The only person we've ever held accountable for lying to us was George Sr. Read my lips. We fired him the next term. That's what we have to stop doing or start doing with the politicians that have already been in the room. And let me tell you about some of those. I don't need to mention names. They'll stand up. I support the fair tax. I believe in limited government. I support your Second Amendment right. But as soon as they get in the room, where is the legislation that they fought for? Where are the press conferences where they warned us about what they were trying to do to us in Washington? How many communications did you get from them explaining what they're trying to do to you in Washington, D.C.? None. I don't care if you voted no. I'm more concerned with, are you fighting for we the people to represent us? I don't care if you support the fair tax. What have you done to get it passed? Nothing. Words cannot express my frustration. They cannot. If I did, you'd probably have me taken out of here for being listening. But this is where we are. And if you will remember what they haven't done, you will not send them back.
Yes.
You will choose people that have not been in the room. And they will only get to stay if they go to change the room. Amen. Barring that, don't trust them.
Amen.
And the last thing, and I'll take some questions if you have any, but I think I pretty much covered it all. I tell folk, there are two things that I don't do. I will never stand up before anyone, and in any speech that I've been, I've never said, I want to go to be your leader. You don't need a leader. You need representatives. You're capable of leading your own lives. You just need the government to get the hell out of the way. And I don't ask for your votes. I want you to go and learn about me. I want you to ask me, I want you to interact with me so that you can learn and make up your own mind. Because when you look at me and you look at them and what they haven't been doing, you're smart people. I think you'll know who you need to vote for. So I don't have to ask for your vote. I want to represent you, not lead you. And I'm done.
Mr. Grayson, I see in your biography that you are a Navy veteran, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. You're quite welcome.
As Karen Handel said, we would not have our liberties without you. And to me, the military are the most important people in our country, and they deserve everything we can give them.
Thank you.
But what I'd like to ask you, please, is given your service and your perspective from being a Navy veteran, what are your feelings about the Benghazi situation? Do you hope and feel that we will get answers? And if you do, is the only way of accountability to be achieved by a select committee and not have Eric Holder investigate himself?
I understand. We can get answers if we demand it of our representatives. That's what they're there for. People are talking about, have talked about Benghazi, and they're talking about Syria. They're saying things like, well, the president hasn't laid out a clear-cut path. I could care less about him laying out a clear-cut path, because the first thing he has not done is conferred with the people, us. That's where it starts, with us. We control that. And yes, we can get answers, but we have to demand it. If we continue to send the same people back to the room that have not been demanding it, we will continue to not get answers. I want to say this about the military. Nothing sickens me more than when I see politicians stand up and talk about they want a strong military. You want to know why? We have veterans who come home. The suicide rate amongst our veterans is higher than that of the civilian population. Something is wrong with that picture. We have veterans who have to engage in an adversarial process to get aftercare when they get home. It can take years for them to get the care that they need. Why are they fighting to get treatment? Yeah, I'd like to see the IRS abolished. It's adversarial too. Anything that is adversarial against the people coming from the government needs to go.
You talked about fair tax. I personally like the flat tax, but obviously we need tax reform. Can you tell us what you propose on getting corporate taxes reduced so that those $1 trillion can come back to our country?
On the tax situation, I would first like to see the IRS, and to start, I'm a one wrong at a time kind of guy going up the ladder. First, I want to get them out of our pockets. Now, people have proposed various types of legislation. Some call it fair tax, consumption tax, flat tax. I won't say anything will be better than the IRS, but I know the IRS personal income tax has to go. And I would start, I personally prefer a consumption tax. That's what I call it. I make it, it goes in my pocket. And I don't get taxed on it unless I decide to spend it for goods or services that I prefer. And it wouldn't be hard to get it passed, and I'll tell you why. All somebody has to do is be willing to go and say, here's the legislation, here's a simplified explanation so that all of the American people can read it. Tell your representatives that you want it. I then present it. Okay, who's going to sign on to pass it? Those that sign on, you go in the good column. Those who don't, you go in the column to be told to the American people, then you fire those guys and we bring in some guys that will pass it and we get it done. That's how you pass legislation. You make sure that they're held accountable. Corporate tax. Now I want to say something that a lot of people don't like for me to say. I mean, man, Derek, don't say that, man. People don't like to talk about race and all this, blah, 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 blah. I don't get caught up in race. Race doesn't matter to me. But the government and mainstream media makes it matter to us. So I do not ignore the dynamics of race. I understand what's going on. Unemployment has been high for black folk. That ain't no news. It wasn't until it started affecting most white folk that we started talking about it. Same thing with gun control, but I'll get to that. Jobs that go, if you call Priceline.com, their customer service is down in Mexico. Those used to be American jobs. Okay? I give you countless companies that are outsourcing. Our government has created an environment where companies can remain profitable and even make more profits by exporting because of our trade agreements, and we're also giving them the benefit of tax breaks. I would like to see those corporate tax breaks wiped out. And then I would like for the government to say, okay, companies that will focus on hiring Americans first, you get breaks. Let's bring those jobs back to America. See, the government doesn't create jobs, but that's the lie they keep telling you. We're going to create jobs. It's not even in the Constitution that they're supposed to create jobs. We the people create jobs. Okay? Government is supposed to be there to ensure a level playing ground. And what the government has done, they have made it profitable for businesses to export jobs, to sell services and products back to American citizens so that they increase their profits, but they hurt this economy. Government did that. And how do you fix it? Stop rewarding those companies that don't care anything but about their profits. And that is what has killed us. They said, somebody asked a politician, should we get rid of capitalism? No, we've never had it. That's where we are with that. So there are ways to bring jobs back to America. We just have to provide an incentive for businesses to have those jobs back in America. And we need to let private sector create jobs and get government to stop telling a lie that they create jobs, because they don't. We do that. Yes, sir.
Let me start by saying thank you again for your service as a Navy veteran to our country.
You're welcome.
I'm most appreciative of that. As I ask my question, it's related to that, but I appreciate your viewpoint and position in Karen's as well on Syria. And I would like to remind everyone in this room, our present 2 U.S. senators have endorsed going into Syria. So your viewpoint, Karen's, are refreshing, and I appreciate the courage you bring to the debate on those issues. But I have an issue that I'm very passionate about. We'll move to it slightly, but I think it's enormously important, and not one single congressman is doing a thing about it. And Karen alluded to it, and I would like to expand on it to see if you would endorse the proposal that I have sent to our 2 U.S. senators, and I haven't gotten a response from either one of them. First of all, I think the Veterans Administration is in a deplorable condition and is a disgrace to this nation.
Yes.
I think because of the federal union's contracts with the federal government, that the VA can't be fixed. So to address the issues of our veterans, I don't believe the VA can do the job that we have to do. And I've proposed 3 options. First of all, for those veterans who have lost limbs due to combat, when they come back home, allow them to utilize their own doctor and private hospitals for their health care needs, paid for through funds that finance the Veterans Administration. And secondly, for those veterans who come back, with what I refer to as combat fatigue. And they need emotional health care services. Allow them to use the private sector as well, and paid for by VA funds that keep that bureaucracy alive. What most people forget and don't understand is the third option that I think is enormously important. And that is the health care provider at home, be they a man or a woman, who has to give up their job to take care of the veteran that comes back home. We need a federal program through the VA that provides funding for that family until that family can get back on its feet. And I would suggest to you that we could pay for that in another way. To the 47 million Obama supporters who are receiving free cell phones, that program, and use those monies to provide access to health care for the veterans. You support the privatization of health care for our veterans when the VA, within a reasonable period of time, 30 days, can't respond to their needs.
Let me say this, and I'm not dodging, and I'm going to answer that question. I said earlier I don't do stomp speeches because you read this, you'll know where I'm coming from. You go to my website, you will find an article that I wrote about the veterans. And one of the things in that article was, when our veterans come home, to ensure that there is not an adversarial process or a delay in their care, they need to have independent parties, private doctors, to address their issues and concerns to make sure that they are getting the best care we can provide. And no veteran should ever come home and end up homeless on the street.
Okay, this is really quick. Thank you very much. You addressed an anger issue that I have held for 3 or 4 months now. Our president, he has addressed an anger issue that I have had for 3 or 4 months now. That I'm really tickled that he did that. I was watching the news and our president said very vehemently that he would not stand for something, and my mind just exploded. How can he not stand for what we want? You know, so you missed that speech of his. So that was that. But the other thing that's a little more relevant is clean bills. Is there any way that we can get a clean bill that you put something good out there and it's loaded up with so much stuff you can't even vote for it?
I will never present anything that's loaded up, and if anybody loads it up, I'm going to name their names. I've always said, if you send me to Washington, I'm going with three things in my toolkit: a broom, a flashlight, and a whistle.
Thank you, Garen. Would any of the candidates who would like to speak, or a representative of that candidate who wants to speak, would have 1 minute each? Y'all come up here and just line up against the wall here. And I don't know how many we have. I think we can give each person 1 minute. But everybody who wants to speak, come on up. Either the candidate or someone representing the candidate. Have your attention, please. While they're coming up, let me mention one thing. Ron Johnson, who again is our second vice chair for the Board of State Party, presented an idea before the breakfast this morning, an idea that they have. He's in charge of the Veterans Committee, the state party. And one thing that they're doing is asking the counties for $300 each to go to buying chairs, special made chairs for our returning veterans who need them. Sports chairs, this type of thing. They're actually manufactured in America, right here in Georgia, right here in Snellville. All places, Snellville, Georgia. But there is something good about Snellville, now that I know. But anyway, if you would, what I'm going to do is we're going to put a button on our cobbgop.org website. This will be a button where you can go there and donate. I want the Cobb GOP to get more than $300. So if y'all will, go to that button. It'll be up in about 2 or 3 days. And donate what you can for special needs shares for our returning veterans in detail. Good. Okay, good.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ms. Lindsay and I'm from Cobb. First off, let me ask y'all to please take a moment and read the Marietta Daily Journal this morning around town article, and you will see my unequivocal opposition to the war in Syria. Someone here in the middle asked for what are those reasons that we can clearly articulate for why Republicans oppose this kind of military intervention. Let me give them to you very clearly. Number one, overwhelming national interest. No. Number two, clearly articulated military goals. No. Number three, use of overwhelming force to achieve that goal. No. Number four, overwhelming American support of our soldiers who are going in. No. Number five, is this the last resort to achieve the goals that the administration wants to have? No. Or is that the Lindsay Doctrine? No. That is the Reagan-Weinberger Doctrine adopted in 1984 for when the United States should intervene internationally with military force. That is a sound doctrine in 1984. It is a sound doctrine today in 2013. We should say no. Gentleman over here asked, under what constitutional authority can the President act to commit us to war? The answer is he can't. Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution places that responsibility with Congress. Congress is not supposed to rubber stamp that approval. Congress is supposed to do what James Madison said that they should, which is temper the executive department's inherent desire to go to war. Therefore, we should adopt what Nancy Reagan once said, just say no, and let's get back to work for the American people. Thank you very much.
It's all good to see everybody here today and a lot of familiar faces. You know my background very well, and you know where I stand 27 years on active duty. There's a lot of subject that we cover here today, and a lot of the fingerprints can be found online. Now, we can talk about Syria. Absolutely not. I worked at the State Department 3.5 years. And that whole time, I know how policy is made. And it's not for the light of heart, and it's not for the amateur. It's for someone who's studied it for a while and studied under one of the greatest, Condoleezza Rice, as to how we make this nation strong with a clear and classical statement of the terms. Syria's Benghazi? No, it's not in the Constitution. So was 115 cruise missiles that were fired into Libya for the benefit of oil to 2 other nations. We received nothing. So can this president do Syria? Absolutely. We have a 60-day countdown. Let's make no mistake about it. Where's our Congress? Where are the leaders that come to you during election time, tell you what they know, tell you about their articles, but where do they go? But speaking of articles, Benghazi, if you want to read about Benghazi, go to October 16th, 2011. I wrote about it. 6 months later, CNN endorsed it in regards to my statements in there, not by name, but by intent of where the fingerprints were. I was in the State Department, and I wrote about Benghazi, and I let it right back to the White House. Go read it, October 16th. Veterans, there is no greater champion. It's on my card, you'll see it. There's no greater champion who knows fundamentally of the 23 million in this nation and the nearly 800,000 in Georgia. There was no one that will fill my boots in Congress to fix. I wrote the 10-point plan to fix the Veterans Administration, and I've also put in there about budget to hold it to the CPI. If you are held to the Consumer Price Index for your Social Security and Medicare, by God, so is the government going to be held by it. They will not have an increase. And I have led also with term limits. I am the only one that has come out first with term limits. I am the only one who will commit to not receive retirement as a congressman. 1 out of 6 receive $100,000. Colonel Rosinski, Congressman Rosinski, has committed to that, and that's what I will commit. And I challenge all across the United States to not accept a retirement. As far as health care, I'll close you with this. I retired from the State Department military to come home and fulfill a promise to World War II veteran POW, my father. I took care of my mother for 4.5 years, and she passed away in her home April 4th. I lived the health care nightmare. I lived the 10 Bill of Rights for Medicare. And ladies and gentlemen, I am the only candidate in the United States of America running for Congress that will very shortly, in the coming couple of weeks, will introduce the donut hole where the train is going right through the Affordable Care Act with solutions focused on the young people. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Rosinski, I will fix those problems, as the card says on your table. Help is on the way, make no mistake about it. God bless.
Good morning. I promise to keep this to 1 minute. First of all, my name is Bruce Thompson. Thank you. You're cutting my gun. My name is Bruce Thompson, and I'm running to fill Barry Loudermilk's seat that he recently vacated to go to Congress. I live in the Bartow County area. You can see if you go to Bruce Thompson GA that I'm a businessman. I just completed the Coverdell, which is RLG leadership, and serve on that team. I'm also last year turned around the Chamber of Commerce in Bartow County. I'm a businessman that cares. C, compassionate and cooperative. A, accountable to you, the people, or into the district. R, respectful, responsible, and a real example to the people in the district. E, I'll be engaged in the lives of the people with ethics. I appreciate your vote. I realize many of you are not in the district, but you have influence. Please influence those voters. Thank you.
I'm Barry Morgan, and I'm running for re-election as your Solicitor General. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve you for the last 14, 15 years in that position, and over 20 years as a prosecutor in this county. I was blessed last month to announce to you that Attorney General Sam Olens, former District Attorney Pat Head, and Sheriff Neil Warren have endorsed me. I'm glad to add to that list this week School Board Member Tim Stoltz, School Board Member Brad Wheeler, and Sue Everhart. Thank you so much. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It is good to be home. I am Tricia Pridemore, and I am a candidate for United States Congress here in the 11th District. I am running on my record as a businesswoman, as a conservative activist who's worked alongside many of you in the trenches, putting up signs, making calls. I have your heart and you have mine, and my job is to go up there and represent your interests. This is going to be a dynamic and exciting campaign, an exciting race. And I'm going to stick to my minute and ask y'all to do one thing. Take out your phones. Follow us on Facebook. Like us on Twitter. Get involved in our campaign. We are excited about the progress that's been made, and we are so, so thankful for your support. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you.
Good morning. For those of you who are here for the first time, my name is Bob Barr, former Congressman and candidate to return to the Congress in the 11th District of Georgia. And Mr. Chairman, thank you again for a very, very excellent meeting. Two quick announcements. First of all, later this week I'll be up at the NRA Fall Board meeting. As many of you all know, I've served on the NRA Board for a number of years. We have our fall meeting up in the Washington, D.C. area. Pay close attention to what this administration is doing under the radar while people's attention is focused up here, as it should be, on very, very important issues like Obamacare, budget, and Syria. Down here, what they are continuing to do is continuing to take away our liberties, and they're doing that in the Second Amendment arena. So re-up your membership with the NRA and the other Second Amendment groups, and I'll give you a report when I get back from our NRA board meeting, where we'll continue to fight these anti-liberty moves by the administration. Secondly, for those of you interested in tax reform, we have coming up next Tuesday, the evening of Tuesday the 10th, right up in Woodstock, a tax reform town hall meeting. No charge to it. It's not a campaign event. We'll have representatives there from the fair tax movement and the flag tax movement and the Tea Party, which is helping to sponsor the event. You can get the details by going to Facebook, our website, but it's next Tuesday, the 10th at 7 o'clock, Jeff, up in Holly Springs, up in Holly Springs. That's just up there. Thank you all very much, and again, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, and it's so great to see so many familiar faces out this morning, and all the new faces we have. My name is Cindy Yeager, and I am running for Cobb Solicitor General. I believe it's time for new leadership in the Cobb Solicitor General's office. We need a prosecutor who zealously works with law enforcement to get repeat DUI offenders off the streets. We need to defend our victims of domestic violence, and we need to be educator of both new prosecutors in the office and law enforcement to make sure that we have the best Solicitor General's office in this state. Please follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and my website, but more importantly, I look forward to meeting each of you personally as I work through my campaign, which I expect to be, I think, May 20th of 2014. Thank you, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you all. My name is Austin Chambers. I'm here on behalf of David Perdue. He's running for U.S. Senate. I know we've got Clemson and Gamecock fans here, but good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Georgia will finally win a game today. So, you know, we can look at Washington right now and sum it up by saying it's a mess. I think that's the simplest way to sum it up. And it's a mess because of these career politicians that have led us down this road. We keep sending the same people and we get the same results. If we want different results, we've got to send different people to Washington. That's where David Perdue comes into this equation for next year's Senate election. We're running against 4 people who are either career politicians or who are bureaucrats who have made a career out of trying to become a career politician. Well, that's not what we need. David Perdue's a businessman. He's never been a politician. He spent 40 years in business. He's former CEO of Dollar General. When he was at Dollar General, they expanded to 3,000 stores, creating tens of thousands of jobs, many of them here in Georgia. He did that during a recession. Before that, he was at companies like Sara Lee and Hager and Reebok. He's from Houston County. He worked on the peach farms and worked his way through high school and then through college. He got a fair education at Georgia Tech, but we won't hold that against him. His first cousin is former Governor Sonny Perdue. He's a big supporter of ours when we travel around the state. You know, back in 2002, Sonny Perdue was running an uphill battle. He was running against Roy Barnes. He was outspent 10-1. He wasn't supposed to win. But with your help, and so many of you in this room and many people just like you, who gave him your name, who gave him some of your money, who gave him your hard work, and put your feet on the ground, we won that race. Well, we're going to do it again. We're running another uphill battle, and we're going to need many of you to stand with us again. David will be here in December to speak to y'all's meeting, and we look forward to meeting many of you then and taking questions you may have. But just remember, if we want different results from Washington, we've got to send a different kind of person to Washington. Enough is enough. Thank y'all.
Morning, I'm Ralph Yost. I'm neither a politician or a speaker, but I am here to support my friend Barry Loudermilk for Congress in the 11th District. I've got to know Barry pretty well in the last 4 or 5 months. He's a constitutional conservative. He's a man who means what he says and does what he says he'll do. He's right to life, Second Amendment, and he's doing this not for a job, but to change the way things are being done up there, to help people just like these young people sitting around this table that aren't going to have it like we've had it. If we don't change something pretty quick, we're about to lose it all. Please ask you to help me support it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Johnelle Woody. I currently serve as the 11th District Director for the Georgia Federation of Republican Women. You'll be happy to know that I'm not running for anything. However, we are in a membership effort to rebuild, enlarge, and make a serious impact on the upcoming elections with the Bartow County Republican Women's Club. We're having a meeting September the 28th, immediately after the Bartow County GOP regular meeting. We invite every one of you from Bartow County, men and women. Men may be affiliate members. We will take your money. We won't give you a vote. No. But we would very much invite all of you to attend. If Republicans throughout the state, but especially in the 11th District. And right now, Bartow County needs some of your help with the women's organization. Thank you so much.
Everybody, I'm with Jack Kingston Percent. He was here last week, spoke for a while, so I'm just going to say thank you on his behalf. Thank you for all your hard work for the county, for the party, and for the state of Georgia.
On the November breakfast, we're going to be cutting that breakfast short. We will have David Perdue speaking, only one speaker. We're going to be getting out of here by around shortly after 9 o'clock on that morning because the women's group, CCRWC, is having their veterans brunch that same morning starting at 10 o'clock. I'm sorry, you're right. I'm sorry, Eugene, you will be there in November. David's in December. Eugene, you will be the speaker that morning, but still only one speaker. And so we're getting out of here, going over to the conference center. They're at the conference center to join the women with their annual veterans brunch. And it's a great brunch. If you've never, how many of you have ever been to a brunch over there, the veterans brunch? Okay, a lot of you have not. It's very well worth it. If you want to purchase tickets to see DGA or any of the women really that are associated with that organization, it's a great, great service, and I encourage everyone to go. Again, that's November the 2nd at 10 a.m. Folks, I appreciate you coming today. It's 1 or 2 minutes after 10. As you know, we get out of here at 10 o'clock. So thanks for coming. Enjoy your weekend.